Hey, it's okay. You two are safe with me. Tell me what's wrong.
We just want our mum. Please don't let him find us.
Philadelphia, rush hour. Adrian Vale, hoodie up, the quiet neighbor who builds AI to spot danger, bikes past 30th Street Station. By the vending machines, a 9-year-old girl shields her mute little brother. A tin robot keychain skitters under a bench, one wheel missing. Adrian pockets it, pulse loud. Walk away, or stop and rewrite their night. If you saw them first, what would you do? The video call ended with polite applause, then silence. Adrian Vale leaned back, the cursor blinking over a thread that read, "Closed in 60 minutes, 40 million." He killed the chat. Through his office glass, 30th Street Station poured people across the concourse, coats and coffee steam smearing into one moving diagram. The city looked gray and efficient, like the code he tuned for a living. "Celebrate tonight?" Ops had asked. "Ship the patch," Adrian said. "Edge latency still spikes. Hold press until the client publishes." He stood, calves tight from the morning ride, hoodie soft at his neck. He told himself he was only stretching, yet his eyes kept drifting to the station. Under the antique clock, beside the vending machines, two small shapes held their ground in the flow. A girl with a too-big backpack. A little boy pressed into her side, hood up, hands tucked into his sleeves. Commuters slid around them without ever really seeing them. Pattern recognition flared. The older child blocked, right foot angled. The smaller one stared down, not scanning, not calling for anyone. No luggage, no snacks, just stillness. Adrian's reflection floated on the glass, hair tousled, hazel eyes behind thin frames. His breath fogged the pane and vanished. His phone buzzed. Investor update in 15. Facilities pinged about an elevator outage. He swiped both away. In the station, the girl adjusted the boy's hood and spoke slow, careful words. The boy didn't answer. Between his fingers, a small metal charm turned, the kind you clip to a key ring, a tiny robot catching light when he rolled it. "You are not their family," he told himself. "You build tools that notice danger at the edge of a frame. You do not step into every frame." The rule kept him from burning out. It also left him restless. He remembered his mother at the kitchen table, counting breaths after the bank called. He remembered the silence he wore at 12, the kind that learns loudness draws the wrong attention. 5 minutes, he said to the empty room. 5 minutes to go downstairs, cross Market Street, and test a feeling against a fact. He slid his wallet and badge into his hoodie's inner pocket, grabbed his U-lock out of habit, and took the stairs. On the landing, he thought about signal and noise. He could teach a model to tell them apart in 12 epochs. People took longer. Rain tapped the window. When he pushed through the lobby doors, the air smelled like wet stone. A bus exhaled. Inside the station, sound became a human ocean. Announcements rolled. Metal hummed. Adrian slowed 20 feet away. He anchored near a column, just another commuter scrolling. The girl's backpack strap was frayed into a small fringe. The boy's laces were untied. One stained a dry brown line. He was close enough to hear the machine's hum and the boy's small breaths. Close enough to see the tiny robot's paint scuffed from years of pockets. The girl angled her body to shield it from being jostled loose. There was steadiness in her that had nothing to do with age, the kind that grows when childhood has to carry more than it should. At the far end of the concourse, a patch of blue moved through the gray, a transit jacket waiting upstream. Adrian's chest went tight. Authority could help. It could also scatter. He set a boundary the way he did in production. Observe, name the risk, decide only when the frame is clear. The blue jacket drew closer. The boy rubbed the robot faster. The girl lifted her chin and pressed her shoulder against his. Adrian tasted copper, the way he always did when a decision arrived. He was a man in a hoodie with a good view and a bike downstairs. He could write the investor update and let the city do what it always did with its edges. He stepped toward them, slow and measured, as if into cold water. 5 minutes, he told himself again. Then we decide. He stopped a few feet away, lowering himself to one knee so his voice wouldn't rise above the rush of trains. "Hey," he said gently. "You two okay out here?" The girl's eyes darted up, wide and defensive. "We're fine," she said quickly. Her tone was steady, but her hands trembled. The boy pressed himself deeper into her side, small fingers gripping the edge of her jacket. Adrian's instinct told him not to reach for them. "I'm not a cop," he said, noticing the flicker of fear in her shoulders. "Just someone who saw you drop this." He pulled from his hoodie pocket a coin he'd picked up earlier, pretending it was theirs. The girl shook her head. "Not ours," she muttered. He nodded once. "All right," he said softly, and then saw it, dangling from the boy's hand. A tiny, bought tin robot keychain, one wheel missing. It clicked against his palm when he moved, a small rhythm against the noise. The toy looked old, loved, and on its last leg. "What's his name?" Adrian asked, nodding toward the robot. The boy didn't answer. His lips parted slightly, but no sound came. The girl's chin lifted. "He doesn't talk," she said flatly, "and the robot doesn't have a name." Adrian gave a small smile. "Well, maybe that's why it's missing a wheel," he said, voice light. "No name, no luck." The girl almost smiled back, almost, but her guard stayed up. "We have to go," she said. "Our mom's waiting." Behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed down the marble floor. Adrian looked up and saw a transit officer in a navy blue jacket making his rounds, scanning the area with professional suspicion. The girl saw him too, froze, then grabbed her brother's hand. "Come on," she whispered. "Hey, wait." Adrian started, but it was too late. They bolted toward the side exit. The boy's small shoes slipped on the tile. The robot keychain swung loose and hit the ground, skittering across the floor until it rolled under a bench. The officer turned at the noise. "You there! Stop!" Adrian instinctively stepped between the officer and the fleeing children, bending to pick up the toy. "They just dropped this," he said quickly, holding it up. "They're scared. Not trouble." The officer frowned. "You know them?" "No," Adrian said, his pulse fast. "But I don't think they need arresting." The man hesitated, then shook his head. "They shouldn't be down here alone," he muttered, moving on. "Kids these days." Adrian's hand tightened around the He-Tin robot, the metal cold against his palm. The missing wheel left a tiny gap where a rivet should have been. He looked toward the exit doors, but the kids were gone, vanished into the blur of evening commuters. The sound of trains roared, swallowing any trace of their voices. For a long moment, Adrian just stood there, toy in hand, trying to reason his way back into the world he understood. Logic, cause, effect. But there was no equation for the way that boy had clung to the robot like it was the only safe thing left. When he finally walked out into the cold Philadelphia air, he slipped the keychain into his pocket. It clinked softly against his house key. By the time he reached his bike, his chest was tight. The wind cut through his hoodie, and the lights of the station glowed behind him. He told himself it was just a fluke, a human snapshot he'd forget by morning. But as he pedaled home, every rotation of the chain echoed the sound of that missing wheel. Small, broken, turning anyway. He didn't know it yet, but that sound would follow him for days, louder than any algorithm, sharper than any success. And somewhere beneath the city, in a small apartment with thin walls and flickering lights, a little boy lay awake, clutching the empty ring where his robot used to hang. Adrian Vale stared at his screen, but the rows of quarterly graphs blurred into meaningless color. The numbers should have thrilled him. Record efficiency, flawless launch, no human error. Yet, every time he blinked, he saw that tin robot spinning under a bench. He tried to reset his focus. "Vale AI Quarterly Metrics, Section 4, he dictated, but the words came hollow. The office hummed faintly, the kind of sterile silence that once soothed him. Now, it just felt empty. At noon, he laced his running shoes and headed out into the chill. The city's pulse ran beneath his feet. Delivery trucks, impatient horns, subway rumble. His mind looped back to the girl's eyes the way she'd said, "We're fine," like it was a password. He'd seen courage before, but not that kind. The brittle kind, held together by fear. He tried to outrun the thought, but it kept pace beside him. By the time he hit the river path, he knew what he had to do. That evening, Adrian left his office early. The sky over Philadelphia bruised into violet and steel. He pedaled toward 30th Street Station, hood up against the wind, stopping at a corner bodega whose neon sign flickered like a heartbeat. The bell over the door jingled as he stepped inside. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, looked up from behind the counter. "Evening," Adrian said. "You see 2 kids around here? Little girl, maybe 9. Boy, about 5. They hang by the station sometimes." The man exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I know who you mean," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "The girl's name's Nora. The boy, Leo, I think. They live a few blocks south, rent-controlled complex on Ludlow. Their mom's been sick." Adrian frowned. "And the man?" The shopkeeper's tone hardened. "The boyfriend? Darren, building super, loudmouth. He drinks, and he likes to let people know he's in charge." "Anyone else checking in on them?" Adrian asked. The man shrugged. "Used to see the kids come in for hot chocolate. Lately, not much. Folks keep to themselves. You know how it is." Adrian nodded, thanked him, and bought a bottle of water he didn't need. As he stepped back into the cold, he spotted the apartment complex across the street. A row of brick buildings with rusted fire escapes and windows that glowed unevenly like tired eyes. He waited across the street, watching. Patterns emerged, the same way they did when he debugged a corrupted data path. He noted the lights that stayed on too long, the doors that opened only after shouting. He saw Darren outside once, heavy-set, in a sleeveless shirt despite the cold, yelling at someone over a trash bag. Adrian's stomach turned. Later that night, he returned to his penthouse overlooking the Schuylkill River. The city glimmered below like a circuit board, precise, organized, except for the places where human life slipped through the cracks. He set his phone on the counter and pulled the tin robot keychain from his pocket. He placed it under the kitchen light. The missing wheel caught the glow, forming a sharp half-shadow on the marble. He turned it over once, then again, as if the act might answer something. He poured himself water and stared at the skyline. He'd built machines to detect danger faster than any human, but what good was intelligence that couldn't move the heart? At midnight, Adrian opened his laptop and searched. Philadelphia CPS Emergency Contact. His finger hovered over the number. He closed the tab. Not yet. He needed more than a report. He needed proof. For the next 3 nights he biked through the same block, memorizing details like an algorithm training itself. Who came, who left, what times, which lights flickered, which windows stayed dark. On the 4th night, a sound caught his ear, metal scraping concrete. He turned the corner and saw Nora kneeling by a storm drain, trying to fish out something small and shiny. Leo stood beside her, silent, clutching his backpack straps. Adrian stopped, heart hammering. He didn't call out, not yet. He just watched, realizing that whatever she was trying to save had already fallen too far. Somewhere deep inside him, something else fell too. The illusion that someone else would handle this. He turned his bike around, the wind slicing cold across his jaw. By the time he reached his apartment, he knew what came next. Tomorrow, he'd find them again, not as a bystander, not as a CEO, but as someone who refused to keep walking past. The next afternoon, Adrian parked his bike outside the shade. Philadelphia Public Library, heart drumming like a code loop he couldn't break. It had been 4 days since he'd seen Nora and Leo near the storm drain. He'd traced their routes through the side streets, the corner bodega, and finally to here, where warmth and anonymity coexisted. Inside, the library buzzed softly with the hum of computers and the scent of dust and paper. A 3D printer in the makerspace corner clicked rhythmically, extruding something small and precise. Adrian spotted them instantly. Nora sat cross-legged near the back table, reading from a stack of children's books she clearly wasn't enjoying. Her coat still zipped. Leo sat beside her, eyes fixed on the printer's arm, hands near the vent for warmth. Adrian stepped closer, keeping his tone light. "That printer's a smart one," he said softly. "But it doesn't talk much either, does it?" Nora stiffened. "We're not supposed to talk to strangers," she murmured without looking up. "That's a good rule," he said, crouching down but keeping a respectful distance. He reached into his hoodie pocket and held out the Tin robot keychain. The missing wheel still hung awkwardly, a half-finished thought. "I think this belongs to him," he said. Leo's eyes widened. His little hand hovered, trembling. You found it," Nora said, voice cracking between relief and suspicion. "Under a bench at the station," Adrian said. "He put up a fight, though." Leo looked from the keychain to Adrian, then back again, his lips forming a faint smile. It was small, quick, but real. Adrian placed the keychain on the table. "Want to help me fix it?" he asked. He pulled out his tablet, opening a design app. A digital rendering of the robot spun slowly on the screen. "All we need is to make a new wheel. The printer can handle the rest." For a moment, no one moved. Then Leo tapped the screen. Once, twice, making a pattern of short beeps with his finger. It wasn't random. Adrian recognized rhythm, communication. "You know what?" he said softly. "You'd make a great engineer." Leo blinked up at him. Nora frowned, torn between distrust and curiosity. "We don't need help," she said. "Mom says people only help if they want something." Adrian nodded. "She's not wrong," he said quietly. "But sometimes, fixing something small, like a robot's wheel, can make a big thing work again. That's all I want." They waited until the printer clicked open. Adrian handed Leo the tiny plastic wheel, pale blue and still warm from the print bed. "Your turn," he said. "You finish it." Leo pressed the wheel into place, the piece snapping neatly into the slot. He turned the robot once, then rolled it across the tabletop. It moved straight, smooth. For the first time, he laughed. Just a little sound, but enough to echo through the quiet room. Nora looked at her brother, stunned. Her voice broke. "He hasn't laughed in weeks." Adrian smiled faintly. "Maybe robots need people who don't give up on them." The librarian passed by, giving them a kind glance but no questions. Nora tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "We have to go soon," she said softly. "Mom's sick. And Darren—" She cut herself off, eyes flicking toward the window. Adrian kept his voice calm. "Is Darren your dad?" Her mouth tightened. "He's supposed to help us," she said. "But he gets mad, a lot. We just stay quiet when he's around." He wanted to ask more, but the stiffness in her shoulders told him she was near her limit. Instead, he said, "Your mom, what's her name?" "Renee," she said. "She used to work at the diner on Chestnut." "All right," Adrian said gently. "If you ever need a safe place, there's a community desk at this library. Tell them to call Dr. Simone Patel at Children's Hospital. She runs a program for families like yours. They'll know what to do." Nora stared at him, unsure if she believed. "Why do you care?" He paused. "Because someone once cared for me when I didn't think they would," he said. "That's how things change." She said nothing. But when she gathered her brother's hand to leave, Leo turned and offered the robot for Adrian to see, rolling smooth, wheel intact. Adrian watched them disappear through the glass doors, the winter sun cutting gold stripes across the floor. He exhaled slowly, unsure if he'd ever see them again, but in his pocket, he felt something. His tablet still open to the robot file, the 3D model spinning endlessly, waiting for a new command. Nora insisted she and Leo couldn't stay long. "Mom's waiting," she said, gripping her brother's small hand. We have to get home before Darren does. Adrian hesitated at the library doors. At least let me walk you part way, he said softly. It's getting dark. Nora looked torn. You don't even know where we live. Then lead the way, Adrian replied. His tone was calm, but beneath it, worry tightened every muscle in his chest. They crossed Market Street, past a laundromat with flickering lights and into a narrow alley that smelled faintly of damp cardboard and diesel. The rent-controlled complex loomed ahead, a red brick rectangle with rusted balconies and graffiti that looked more like warnings than art. As they climbed the steps, Adrian noticed the broken door latch, the faint odor of smoke inside the hallway. Nora paused at an apartment door where the number 2B was half peeled away. "Mom's sleeping," she whispered. "We'll be quiet." Adrian stayed in the hall. "I'll just wait here." Nora unlocked the door and slipped inside with Leo. From the hall light, Adrian caught fragments, the outline of a mattress on the floor, a heater buzzing weakly, a sink piled with cups. A minute later, Nora stepped back out, holding something torn in half, a crumpled notice to vacate. "Darren said we gotta leave by Friday," she said, her voice trembling. "But Mom didn't sign anything." Adrian took the paper gently. The print looked suspiciously homemade. "Who gave this to you?" "Darren," she said. "He says the building's his now. He yells a lot when Mom's asleep." Behind her, Leo's faint cough echoed from inside. Adrian could see a small drawing taped on the fridge. 3 stick figures, a crooked heart above them. The paper had been torn and taped back together, as if someone couldn't bear to throw it away. "Does your mom have family nearby?" Adrian asked. Nora shook her head. "Aunt Camilla, but she lives far. We can't bother her. Darren says we owe him for rent." Adrian clenched the fake notice tighter. "He's lying," he said quietly. "You don't owe him anything." Just then, a door slammed at the far end of the hall. Heavy boots thudded closer. Nora's face drained of color. "That's him," she whispered. Adrian stepped slightly forward, instinct kicking in. The man who emerged from the stairwell was thick-shouldered, with a patchy beard and a cigarette glued to his lip. "Who the hell are you?" Darren barked, eyes narrowing at Adrian's hoodie. "Friend of the family," Adrian said evenly. "They dropped something at the library." Darren's gaze flicked between them. "You some kind of social worker? You people always snooping." "No," Adrian replied, steady. "Just making sure the kids got home safe." Darren smirked, smoke curling from his mouth. "They're fine. You can go back to your tech job or whatever." Adrian didn't move. "They deserve a safe home." The hallway fell silent. Darren stepped closer, his breath sour with beer. "You don't get to tell me what my home is," he snarled. "You don't live here." Nora pulled Leo behind her. "Please," she whispered. "Let's go inside." Adrian raised his palms, non-threatening. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't live here, but maybe that's the problem." Darren sneered and slammed his door. The sound echoed through the hallway. When it was quiet again, Nora's shoulders shook. "He gets worse when he drinks," she said softly. "Sometimes Mom hides in the bathroom." Adrian exhaled, his jaw tight. "Do you have food?" She looked down. "Just ketchup and cereal, but it's old." He nodded once. "All right. Tomorrow, you'll get groceries. And I'll call someone who can help your mom." "Don't call anyone," she said quickly. "If Darren finds out—" "I won't say your names," Adrian promised. "I'll do it right." She studied him like someone deciding whether to trust gravity. Finally, she whispered, "He'll be gone for work in the morning. Maybe then." "Okay," Adrian said softly. "Tomorrow morning." When he finally left the building, the cold hit him hard. He pulled up his hood and walked toward his bike, the fake eviction notice still in his hand. Under a streetlight, he reread the paper. The signatures didn't match any legal format. The landlord's name was misspelled. His stomach twisted. By the time he reached his apartment, he was already dialing a number he hadn't used in months. "Simone," he said when she answered, voice urgent. "It's Adrian Vale. I need a favor. 2 kids. possible neglect, and I want to do this by the book. He glanced down at the crumpled notice, the ink smearing under his thumb. No lone wolf rescues, he muttered to himself. Not this time. Dr. Simone Patel's voice came clear and calm through Adrian's phone, the same tone that had steadied hundreds of frightened parents before. Start from the beginning, she said. Adrian sat at his kitchen counter, the fake notice flattened beside the tin robot keychain. 2 kids, Nora and Leo Alvarez. Their mother's sick, maybe substance issues. The building superforged an eviction notice. He's violent, unpredictable. Did you witness any direct harm? Simone asked. Not yet, Adrian said, but I saw enough to know it's coming if no one steps in. He heard her tapping on a keyboard. All right, she said. I'll alert CPS tonight. They'll need corroboration. Address, physical condition of the children, any sign of risk. I have all of it, Adrian replied, and footage from the hallway security cam outside their unit. Simone paused. You recorded it? Adrian hesitated. I designed the software that can pull open feeds for safety monitoring. It's technically public access. A long sigh. Of course you did. All right, Vale, but remember, procedure matters. No cowboy moves. Understood, he said. An emergency check will happen by morning, Simone continued. If conditions are unsafe, CPS can file for a 72-hour caregiver order. They'll need a temporary custodian. Do you have someone who can step in? Adrian looked out at the sleeping city, lights flickering like data nodes. Yes, he said quietly. By dawn, the process was already moving. Simone coordinated with the Sham Philadelphia Department of Human Services, and an investigator was dispatched. Adrian waited 2 blocks from the building, coffee cooling in his hand, his pulse steady only on the surface. A white sedan pulled up. A woman stepped out, clipboard, scarf, eyes that had seen everything. She greeted him briefly. You're Mr. Vale? Just Adrian, he said. She nodded. You filed the concern. We'll handle it from here. I'll wait, he said simply. She didn't argue. Inside the building, her footsteps echoed faintly. 10 minutes passed, then 15. A radio crackled. When she emerged again, her face was grave. The mother's unresponsive but alive. The children were cold, hungry but unharmed. You did the right thing. Adrian exhaled slowly, the tension draining from his chest. What happens now? We're granting a 72-hour emergency order under Dr. Patel's supervision, she said. You'll be listed as the temporary custodian if you consent. It's unusual, but the agency approved it given your background and resources. I consent, he said instantly. That afternoon, Adrian guided Nora and Leo into the Vale AI campus, through a discreet service entrance. He'd already cleared the logistics. Legal signed the guardianship paperwork. HR prepared a guest suite, known as the Founder's Loft, and security was instructed to maintain privacy. No press, no leaks, no optics, just safety. The elevator doors opened to a warm, quiet apartment filled with sunlight and soft gray furniture. Nora's eyes widened. This isn't a hotel? No, Adrian said gently. It's a place for people who need a few safe nights. Leo clutched his robot, the repaired wheel spinning between his fingers. It's big, he whispered. Adrian smiled. You'll get used to it. He crouched beside them. Dr. Patel and I will help your mom get better. You'll see her soon. For now, this is home, okay? Nora bit her lip. What if Darren comes? He won't, Adrian promised. He doesn't know where you are. He let them settle, careful not to hover. Security dropped off fresh clothes and Adrian slipped out to make one last call. When Simone answered, her tone softened. They're safe? They are, Adrian said. But I don't want this hidden behind corporate walls. If we're doing this, we do it right. She laughed softly. You're quoting me now. Guess you're rubbing off on me, he replied. Later that night, he returned to the loft carrying 2 grocery bags. Socks, pajamas, a nightlight shaped like the moon. The air smelled faintly of lavender detergent. Nora was sitting at the kitchen counter, legs swinging, while Leo watched cartoons, his small head tilted toward the screen. Adrian cooked simple scrambled eggs on a portable induction top. "No spice," he said, plating it gently. "Just salt and patience." Nora forked a bite, nodding approvingly. "You cook better than Darren." "Low bar," Adrian said quietly, and she laughed, a sound that eased something deep in him. Leo rolled his robot across the table. The wheel turned perfectly, smooth and sure. For the first time in weeks, the children ate until their plates were empty. Adrian sat nearby, not as a CEO or a rescuer, just a man watching two kids rediscover what warmth felt like. Outside, Philadelphia shimmered against the cold, and for once the city didn't look gray. It looked alive. The next morning dawned pale and quiet over Philadelphia. The sky looked washed out, the kind of cold that sharpened sound and smell. In the founder's loft, sunlight filtered through the blinds, stretching across the gray sofa where Nora and Leo slept under fleece blankets. Adrian stood by the counter, laptop open, pretending to read through investor updates he couldn't absorb. He wasn't used to silence like this, human silence. Not the hum of servers or the whir of cooling fans, but the soft rhythm of a breathing that filled a room with life. When Leo stirred, clutching the 110 robot keychain, Adrian smiled faintly. "Morning, champ," he said softly. "You hungry?" Leo blinked sleepily, nodding. Nora stretched, rubbing her eyes. "You really made breakfast last night?" "Yeah," Adrian said, "and I'm doing it again. Scientists call that a repeatable experiment." That earned a tiny grin from her, and for a moment she looked like the 9-year-old she was supposed to be. He took them to the pharmacy nearby that afternoon. It wasn't just for supplies, it was to give them something normal, a choice. Nora stood at the aisle, indecisive between bubblegum and mint toothpaste. Leo examined every box of bandages like they were rare artifacts. When they reached the checkout, Adrian caught their reflection in the window glass. Him, in his hoodie, the kids bundled in oversized jackets. They looked like a family, even if the world didn't know it yet. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, smiled at the children. "First sleepover with Dad?" Nora glanced up, startled. Adrian didn't correct her. He just nodded once. Something like that. That evening, back at the loft, he showed them how to make pancakes. Leo poured too much batter, and Nora laughed so hard she snorted milk. Adrian froze for a second at the sound. It had been years since his apartment held that kind of joy. They ate together at the counter. For dessert, he sliced strawberries and drizzled honey, and Leo offered the first one to his sister without being told. "Is Mom okay?" Nora asked quietly. "She's getting help," Adrian said. "Dr. Patel's making sure of it." Nora looked skeptical. "People always say that. Then they don't come back." Adrian leaned forward. "You know how your robot was missing a wheel?" She nodded. "Well," he said, "it still worked, didn't it? Just slower. Sometimes people need time to fix their missing parts too. That's what your mom's doing." Nora studied him for a long moment, then said softly, "You talk like a teacher." He smiled. "I build things that think. But lately, I'm realizing that's the easy part." Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Adrian stood at the loft's glass wall, city lights stretching like constellations below. His reflection looked back at him, hoodie, tired eyes, hair disheveled. Somewhere under that he saw the boy he used to be, the one who waited by a door for a father who never came home. The thought struck deep. Maybe that was why he couldn't walk away from Nora and Leo. His phone buzzed, a message from Simone. "CPS hearing scheduled tomorrow morning. Darren's contesting custody. You'll need to attend as temporary custodian. Bring documentation." Adrian sighed, rubbing his temples. "Of course he is," he murmured. He checked the clock. nearly midnight. He should have been exhausted, but instead his mind was wired with quiet determination. He packed copies of every file, the forged eviction notice, photos of the apartment, timestamps, security footage. Every data point mattered now. Before he turned in, he glanced once more at the sleeping kids. Nora's arm draped protectively over Leo, who still clutched the repaired robot against his chest. The small blue wheel gleamed faintly under the nightlight's glow. Adrian whispered, "You're safe now, I promise." He meant it, not as a CEO sealing a deal, but as a man who'd finally decided what kind of legacy mattered. Outside, the city kept moving. Trains, lights, lives overlapping in quiet urgency. But for the first time in years, Adrian felt still, and in that stillness he realized, intelligence builds machines, but love builds meaning. Morning arrived brittle and gray. Philadelphia was half awake, buses coughing exhaust and steam drifting above the sidewalks. Inside. Vale AI's glass lobby, the hum of early meetings filled the air until a single, furious voice cut through it. "Where are they?" Adrian turned from his security desk's live feed and froze. Darren stood near the reception podium, face red, eyes glassy, waving a crumpled sheet of paper like a flag. His voice echoed off the marble walls. "You people can't keep my kids from me." Security moved instinctively, but Adrian raised a hand. "It's all right," he said, stepping forward. Darren's gaze locked on him. You think you can buy everything? You took them." "I made sure they were safe," Adrian said evenly. "There's a difference." The man shoved the paper toward him. A bogus notarized guardianship, clearly printed at home. "Their mom's unfit. I'm the only adult they have. You had no right." Employees had begun peering out from offices. Someone whispered, "Isn't that the CEO?" Cameras clicked on phones. Adrian's jaw tightened. He turned to the head of security. "Please escort Mr. Weller outside, calmly." Darren shouted louder, drawing glances from every corner. "You kidnapped them! You think your fancy hoodie makes you God?" The words hit sharper than expected. Adrian could almost feel the invisible judgment in the room. Hoodie, sneakers, quiet tone. To strangers, he looked more like a coder out of place than a man running the entire company. Security guided Darren to the exit, but the damage was done. Before Adrian even reached his office, notifications exploded across his phone. Tech CEO, accused of kidnapping children. One blog had already spun it into a clickbait headline. His assistant met him at the door, pale. "The story's spreading fast. PR's drafting a statement." "Don't release anything," Adrian said. "No posts, no arguments. We'll let the facts talk." He forwarded everything to legal. Photos, timestamps, Simone's reports, the fake eviction notice. Then he called her directly. "You saw the news?" he asked. "I did," Simone said. "Ignore it. I already contacted family court. We're filing for an Hatay emergency hearing today. Darren's paperwork won't hold for 10 seconds under scrutiny." Adrian exhaled, pressing his fingers to his temple. "He's not just angry. He's desperate. He could hurt someone." "I've alerted police for a welfare check on Renee's hospital room," Simone replied, "just in case he tries to reach her." "Good," Adrian said quietly. "I'll be there before the hearing starts." Hours later, he parked outside Penn Presbyterian Hospital. The hall smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. Nurses moved briskly between rooms. Renee Alvarez was in a small recovery ward, her arm hooked to an IV, eyes half open. The bruises along her temple were fading, but exhaustion lingered in every word. When Adrian stepped in, Nora and Leo froze, uncertain. Then Renee's eyes filled. "My babies," she whispered, reaching weakly toward them. They ran to her, clutching her arms, careful not to disturb the wires. Leo pressed his robot to her blanket, as if sharing the proof of survival. Renee looked up at Adrian, confusion and disbelief mingling. You're the man from the station," she said softly. He nodded. Yes, Adrian Vale. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why? Because you weren't supposed to do this alone, he said simply. She let out a shaking laugh that turned into a sob. I was so scared they'd take them away forever. They won't, Adrian said gently. You're getting help, Renee. Darren can't touch them now, not without going through me and the court. Nora held her mother's hand, squeezing tight. He's been taking care of us, she whispered. Renee turned to Adrian again. You don't even know us. Why risk all this? He hesitated before answering. Because I know what it feels like when the people who should care don't. Her breath caught. Then thank you for not walking by. Outside the room, Simone met him with a folder of documents. Hearing set in 2 hours, she said. You ready to be cross-examined like a criminal? Adrian smirked faintly. Wouldn't be my first launch under pressure. Simone grinned. Then let's make sure your code holds. As they walked toward the courthouse, the city wind whipped past, cold, fast, and alive. Adrian felt something settle inside him. This wasn't about optics or image anymore. It was about truth. And truth, he realized, didn't need headlines. It just needed witnesses. Family Court 3B sat inside an old sandstone building with peeling paint and echoes that carried too far. Reporters lingered outside, whispering through phones, their lenses hungry for scandal. Adrian ignored them as he followed Dr. Simone Patel inside. He wasn't there as the hoodie-wearing CEO who had built Vale AI. He was there as the man who refused to look away from 2 children at a train station. The bailiff called the case. Alvarez versus Weller. Darren sat at the opposite table, wearing a wrinkled blazer 2 sizes too small. His smirk came easy, but his eyes flicked nervously between his lawyer and the press bench. He'd expected a spectacle. He wasn't expecting preparation. Judge Martinez, calm but sharp-eyed, scanned the documents in front of her. Mr. Vale, she said, you're the temporary custodian of the minors, correct? Yes, Your Honor. Darren's lawyer leaned back, voice dripping disdain. Your Honor, my client asserts that Mr. Vale's interference is both illegal and unethical. He's a billionaire playing savior, inserting himself into a private matter. Adrian clasped his hands calmly. May I respond? Briefly, the judge said. Adrian nodded. I didn't interfere. I witnessed 2 children living in conditions that violated basic safety. I followed procedure. I contacted Child Protective Services. I acted only under their supervision. He turned toward the opposing table. And unlike Mr. Weller, I didn't forge legal documents. The lawyer's jaw tightened. Objection. Overruled, the judge said evenly. Continue, Mr. Vale. Adrian slid the notice to vacate across the table. This is the form he gave the children to scare them into leaving. The property owner confirmed it's fake. I also have door camera footage showing him entering the apartment after hours without consent. Simone added, Dr. Patel, Children's Hospital, our department corroborates everything Mr. Vale stated. We recommended the emergency order based on verifiable evidence. The judge's pen scratched against paper. Duly noted. Darren's face reddened. They're my kids. That woman, he pointed toward Renee's photo in the file, was passed out for days. I kept them fed. Simone's tone hardened. The hospital found blood alcohol levels consistent with poisoning. She's been in supervised detox for 6 days. You didn't keep them fed, you kept them afraid. A hush fell. The judge's gaze sharpened. Do you have anything else, Mr. Weller? Darren's lawyer whispered frantically, but Darren ignored him, slamming his palm on the table. You think this rich boy knows better than me? You all just side with money. Adrian's voice stayed low, steady. Money didn't pull those kids out of that hallway, Mr. Weller. Conscience did. The room went still. Judge Martinez looked at the file again, then at Nora and Leo, sitting quietly beside Simone, fingers entwined. I've seen too many cases like this, she said softly. The children deserve stability, not threats. She tapped her pen once. Temporary custody remains with Mr. Vale under agency oversight. The biological mother will be granted visitation upon medical clearance. Mr. Weller, your contact is suspended until further review." Darren shot to his feet, shouting, but deputies were already beside him. His voice faded as they led him out. When the gavel struck, Nora reached for Leo's hand. The boy squeezed his robot keychain, the repaired wheel turning slowly in his palm. Simone smiled faintly. "You just dismantled a bully without raising your voice," she whispered. Adrian gave a weary laugh. "Occupational habit. Debug, don't destroy." Outside, the cold bit sharper than before, but it didn't sting. Reporters still lingered, waiting for sound bites. Adrian ignored them all. The kids followed close, clutching cocoa cups Simone had handed them from a courthouse vending machine. Halfway down the steps, Nora looked up. "Does this mean we get to see Mom soon?" "Yes," Adrian said softly. "She's getting stronger. You will." Leo tugged his sleeve. "Can Mom come where the stars are on the ceiling?" Adrian smiled, remembering the galaxy nightlight. "One day, yeah. Maybe we'll all go somewhere brighter." Nora looked at him thoughtfully. "Darren said people only help if they want something. What do you want?" Adrian paused. "To prove him wrong," he said. She nodded slowly, as if filing the answer away for later. That night, at the loft, Adrian tucked a blanket over Leo, who was already asleep. Nora sat at the counter, sketching something on scrap paper. "What are you drawing?" he asked. "Our robot," she said. "But this time, it's fixed." He leaned over. The robot had 4 perfect wheels and a smile. Beneath it, she'd written a single line in shaky block letters. "People aren't code, but they can learn to heal." Adrian felt a lump in his throat. "That's pretty good logic," he whispered. She grinned. "You can use it in your AI thing." He laughed quietly. "Maybe I will." Outside, the city lights shimmered. The crisis wasn't over, but something solid had begun. A system of care, not just code. And for the first time in a long time, Adrian didn't feel like a man fixing machines. He felt like someone finally learning how to live. The morning after the hearing, Philadelphia felt different. Lighter, somehow, as if the city itself had exhaled. A fine mist rolled off the Schuylkill, softening the edges of glass and steel. Inside the founder's loft, Adrian brewed coffee while Nora and Leo ate cereal at the counter, still quiet, still cautious, but breathing easier. The television in the corner played a muted news recap. "Tech CEO clears name amid custody dispute," the headline scrolled. Adrian clicked it off. Nora glanced at him. "Are we in trouble?" He smiled faintly. "No. Trouble's what happens when people stop telling the truth. We didn't." She nodded, absorbing that. Leo pushed a strawberry toward her bowl, like a peace offering. She took it. Later that morning, Adrian rode with Simone to Change Penn Presbyterian Hospital for a scheduled visit. Nora fidgeted in the back seat. "Will Mom remember us?" she asked softly. "She never forgot you," Simone said gently. She just needed help remembering herself. When they arrived, Renee sat upright in her bed, pale but clear-eyed. The IV had been removed. Her hands shook, but she smiled when she saw them. "There's my brave girl," she whispered, voice trembling. Nora rushed forward, hugging her tightly. Leo climbed up beside them, pressing his robot into her lap. "He's fixed now," he said. Renee brushed his hair back. "So are we, baby." Adrian lingered near the doorway, not wanting to intrude, but Renee looked up, her eyes glassy. "Mr. Vale," she said. "Please, come here." He stepped closer. She took his hand, small and cold in his. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You didn't have to get involved. You didn't even know us." Adrian shook his head. "It's not about knowing. It's about seeing." Renee's lip trembled. "When you've lived like I did, people stop seeing you. You stop seeing yourself." He held her gaze. then this is the start of something new. A nurse entered, quietly checking Renee's vitals, and the moment broke. Still, something in her expression said she believed him. Outside the hospital, Simone walked with Adrian across the parking lot. "You know," she said, "most CEOs would have handled this through PR and donation checks. You got your hands dirty." "I build things meant to protect people," Adrian said. It felt wrong not to do it in person. Simone smiled. "Just make sure you protect yourself, too. Darren's case isn't over." "I know," Adrian replied, "but I think the story's changing." That evening, he returned to the loft. The kids were already home with their aunt, Camilla, who had arrived from Delaware, a strong, practical woman with calm eyes and calloused hands. "Mr. Vale," she said, shaking his hand, "they told me what you did. You have no idea what this means." "I just made a few calls," he said modestly. "You did more than that," Camilla said, her voice thick. "You gave them a chance to feel safe again." The living room had transformed. Blankets neatly folded, children's shoes lined up by the door. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon. For the first time, it felt like a home. Nora sat beside her aunt, sketchbook open again. "We're staying with Aunt Camilla now," she told Adrian. "CPS said it's official for a while." He nodded. "That's good. You'll like it there." She tilted her head. "Will you still visit?" Adrian's throat tightened. "If you want me to." Leo looked up, clutching his robot. "You fixed it," he said simply. "So you have to come check the wheels." Adrian smiled. "That sounds like a deal." Hours later, when the kids were asleep, Adrian sat on the loft balcony, phone in hand. A notification flashed. His legal team's final report. Custody order extended. No contact granted to Darren Weller. Media speculation resolved. Case classified confidential. He stared at the screen, then powered it off. Below, the city lights reflected on the river like fractured stars. He remembered how, just days ago, he'd been chasing latency curves and contract closings. It all seemed smaller now. Important, but hollow, without context. When Simone called to check in, he answered quietly. "They're safe," she said. "They are," he replied. "And so is she." There was a pause. "You know," she added, "for someone who built intelligence, you've got a surprising amount of heart." He chuckled softly. "It's under heavy development." She laughed. "Then keep updating it." After the call ended, Adrian stayed outside a while longer, the cold air stinging just enough to remind him he was alive. Inside, Leo stirred in his sleep, murmuring words that made Adrian's chest ache. "Robots don't yell." Adrian smiled faintly, whispering into the dark, "No, they don't." And for the first time in years, he realized neither did he. A week later, the hearing's outcome held firm, and for the first time the future didn't feel like a storm waiting to break. Adrian biked through a drizzle-slicked Philadelphia afternoon toward a small duplex near Passyunk Avenue, where Camilla. Reyes had moved Nora and Leo. His hoodie was damp, his sneakers spattered with street grit, but he didn't care. Every pedal stroke felt lighter than the last. When he reached the address, a blue ceramic angel hung beside the door, chipped but smiling. Inside, laughter echoed. Real, unguarded laughter. Camilla opened the door, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Well, look who's back," she said warmly. "They've been watching for you since breakfast." Nora appeared behind her, grinning. "We made pancakes. Not as good as yours, but Aunt Camilla says they'll get there." "Progress," Adrian said, smiling. "That's all engineering ever is." Leo rushed forward, holding up the tin robot proudly. "See? He's got a backpack now." The tiny robot's new 3D printed add-on looked like a miniature pack strapped across its shoulders. Adrian crouched, inspecting it. "That's brilliant," he said. "What's inside?" Leo shrugged with mock secrecy. "Snacks." Camilla laughed. They wanted him ready in case of adventure. The duplex was modest. 2 bedrooms, creaky floors, but it was safe. Adrian noticed the subtle signs: a full pantry, curtains drawn against the cold, and a smell of cinnamon and soap that spoke of home. Camila poured him coffee while the kids worked on homework at the kitchen table. "You really set something in motion," she said quietly. "The social worker said your company's Watch Bridge Families program is covering groceries and therapy sessions." "It's not charity," Adrian said. "It's design. A system that helps without making people feel small." Camilla studied him. "You don't just build AI, do you?" He hesitated. "AI was the start. Maybe this is the point." She smiled softly. "My sister's lucky someone like you walked by that night." Adrian shook his head. "Luck had nothing to do with it. Choice did." After lunch, he joined Nora and Leo on the living room floor to help with homework. Nora's math sheet was crumpled, the numbers half erased. "Decimals again?" Adrian asked. She groaned. "They never end. Like you keep dividing forever." He chuckled. "Exactly. But you stop when you've learned what you need." He tapped the page gently. "Sometimes that's what life is. Not solving forever, just knowing when to rest." She looked up, thoughtful. "Mom said that once. She said grown-ups forget how to stop." "Your mom's a smart woman," Adrian said. "She's coming home soon," Nora said proudly. "The hospital said next week." Leo beamed. "And we'll make soup. Real soup." Adrian nodded, feeling warmth rise behind his ribs. "I'll bring bread," he said. As evening fell, Adrian stepped outside to leave. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of wet brick and grass. He hesitated, turning back. Camilla stood by the door, arms crossed, watching him. "You can visit any time," she said. "You're part of this now, whether you admit it or not." He smiled, tugging at his hood. "I'm not sure I'm built for that." Camilla gave him a knowing look. "You don't have to be. You just have to show up." That night, Adrian returned to Vale HQ. The office was dark except for the city lights reflecting off glass walls. He opened his laptop, but not to check profits. Instead, he drafted a memo. Project Horizon, Human-Centered Safety Systems. Goal: repurpose existing AI tools for real-world family support, early alerts for housing fraud, tenant intimidation, and domestic risk patterns. Partner with community foundations for field deployment. He stared at the blinking cursor, then added one more line. Inspired by Nora and Leo. As he shut down the computer, the faint sound of rain brushed against the windows again. He pocketed the tin robot, now a permanent fixture beside his keys. The tiny wheel spun once as he rolled it between his fingers. For the first time in a long time, the sound didn't haunt him. It steadied him. Outside, lights from passing trains flickered across his face like brief moving stars. He whispered to no one in particular, "Safe doesn't mean silent." And with that, he turned off the lights. 2 nights later, Camilla called just past midnight. Her voice was calm but strained. "Adrian, I'm sorry. It's Leo. He woke up screaming again. I didn't want to bother you, but he's shaking, saying he's coming, and I can't get him to breathe right." Adrian was already pulling on his shoes. "I'm on my way. Don't apologize." The ride through the sleeping city blurred by. Rain misted against his glasses, streetlights flashing like Morse code in the wet asphalt. He hadn't realized how quickly his body could move when the fear wasn't for himself. When he arrived, the duplex lights were on. Camilla met him at the door, robe tied tight, worry etched into every line of her face. "He's in the bedroom. He just keeps saying, 'Don't let him in.'" Adrian stepped quietly into the small room. Nora was sitting on the bed beside her brother, whispering softly. Leo's eyes were wide open, breath fast and shallow, clutching the washed tin robot keychain against his chest. The repaired wheel glinted faintly in the dark. Adrian knelt beside him. "Hey, buddy, it's me. You're safe, okay? Darren's not here. Leo didn't seem to hear him. His breaths came too fast, too shallow. Panic. Adrian recognized the rhythm. He'd seen it before, in boardrooms and data centers, adults breaking down under pressure. But this was a child. He turned to Camila. "Do you still have the tablet I dropped off last week?" "In the kitchen," she said. "Bring it," he said gently. When she returned, Adrian opened the car-breathing coach app his engineers had built for pediatric anxiety studies, part of an old prototype they'd never commercialized. He handed it to Leo, the screen glowing softly with an animated robot. "See this?" Adrian said. "Your robot's friend is going to help us breathe. Ready?" He tapped the screen, and the app's voice spoke softly. "In through your nose. Slow. Like you're smelling cocoa." Leo blinked. Adrian demonstrated, taking a slow, deep breath. Nora followed, mimicking him. After a moment, Leo's shoulders loosened. He copied the motion. "Good," Adrian whispered. "Now, again. This time, your robot breathes with you." The app's robot expanded and shrank, synchronized to gentle tones. The ceiling's galaxy nightlight spun faint constellations across the walls. For the first time since he'd entered, Adrian saw the color return to Leo's cheeks. After 5 minutes, the boy's breathing steadied. He turned the keychain slowly in his hands, whispering hoarsely, "Robots don't yell." Adrian swallowed the tightness in his throat. "No," he said softly, "they don't, and neither will anyone here." Leo's eyelids fluttered. "Promise?" Adrian brushed his hair back. "Promise." When Leo finally drifted to sleep, Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion catching up with him. Nora leaned against his shoulder. "He used to hide in the closet when Darren yelled," she said quietly. "He thought the dark could make the sound stop." Adrian exhaled slowly. "You were the one who made it stop." She looked up. "No, you did." He shook his head. "I just helped you see what you already knew. What right feels like." In the kitchen, Camilla poured tea, hands still trembling slightly. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "If you hadn't picked up, I would have called an ambulance." "You did the right thing," he said. "He'll be okay. He just needs to relearn what quiet means." Camilla smiled faintly. "You sound like you've done this before." He looked down, fingers tightening around the mug. "When I was 12, I used to count the seconds between my father's shouts. I thought if I could predict them, I could stop them." Camilla's eyes softened. "And now?" He smiled, tired but honest. "Now, I just help other kids unlearn that sound." Before leaving, Adrian placed the tablet on Leo's nightstand. The app's screen glowed softly in standby, the animated robot waiting for another breath to guide. At the door, Nora hugged him tightly. "You fixed him again," she said. He crouched to meet her eyes. "No," he said gently. "You both fixed each other. I just brought tools." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the street glistening under the streetlights. As Adrian unlocked his bike, the robot's small wheel caught the moonlight through the duplex window, spinning once like a tiny, steady heartbeat. He smiled to himself. Maybe this quiet work, unseen, uncelebrated, was what redemption really looked like. The next morning, the city's gray skyline cut clean against a pale winter sky. Adrian rode downtown, the cold biting his face, a rare calm threading through him. But when he reached the office, a message waited from Dr. Simone Patel. Hearing advanced, prosecutors adding new charges. Darren's appeal was denied, but he's requested a public review. "We need you in court." Adrian closed his eyes for a moment, steadying himself. He'd thought the hardest part was over, but some stories, he realized, needed more than one reckoning. He slipped the Q10 robot keychain into his pocket before heading out. The small weight reminded him why he couldn't just delegate this. Family Court 4A was crowded this time. More press, more lawyers, more noise. Darren sat with his new attorney, smug again, now that the cameras were back. He looked clean, freshly shaved, the image of false reform. The judge entered. This hearing will finalize custody and review pending criminal charges against Mr. Weller. Adrian sat quietly at the front with Simone beside him. Renee and Camilla sat behind, their hands intertwined, nervous but resolute. Nora and Leo were excused from attending. They were at school, where they belonged. Darren's lawyer rose first. Your Honor, my client maintains that he acted only out of concern for the minors. He provided shelter and financial support when their mother was incapacitated. The allegations of abuse are exaggerated by wealthy parties with reputational motives. Judge Martinez arched a brow. Wealthy parties? The lawyer gestured toward Adrian. Mr. Vale's involvement has been, let's call it, unconventional. He's used his resources to manipulate outcomes, exerting influence on social services. We're not questioning his charity, but his methods. Adrian met his gaze calmly. You can question my methods, he said, voice steady. But not the bruises, not the forged notice, not the fear on those kids' faces. Facts don't care about my net worth. The courtroom murmured. Simone slid a new folder forward. Your Honor, the prosecution has added 3 charges: assault, child endangerment, and forgery of legal documents. These are supported by photographic evidence, eyewitness statements, and Mr. Weller's prior record. The lawyer sputtered. Prior record? The judge turned to Darren. Is there something you wish to disclose? Darren's bravado faltered. He shifted in his chair. That was years ago. I was clean. But not harmless, Simone said sharply. You exploited their fear. That's not care, it's control. The silence that followed was absolute. After hours of testimony, Simone's precise, Renee's raw, Adrian's concise but devastating, the judge leaned back, weary but resolute. The court finds substantial evidence of neglect and coercion. Temporary custody is now permanent with Ms. Camila Reyes. The biological mother, Ms. Renee Alvarez, is granted shared medical and visitation rights under ongoing supervision. Renee gasped softly. Adrian turned back to see tears streaking her cheeks, relief shaking her shoulders. The judge continued. Mr. Weller, you are prohibited from any contact with the minors or their guardians. Furthermore, the court recognizes Mr. Adrian Vale as standby guardian, a safety designation in case of emergency, as requested by Child Protective Services. Adrian blinked, caught off guard. Simone gave him a small, knowing smile. They trust you, she whispered. Judge Martinez signed the final page. This hearing is concluded. Outside, the cold sunlight spilled across the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed, but Adrian ignored them all. Renee approached him first. Her movements unsteady but determined. They're safe now, she said softly. You did that. He shook his head. We did that. She nodded, wiping her eyes. When I get stronger, I want to help other families like us. If your company ever needs voices who've lived it, call me. Adrian smiled. I will. Camilla stepped forward next, clutching a manila folder. The kids made something for you. She opened it. A drawing, rough and colorful. It showed 4 figures. Nora, Leo, their mother, and Adrian standing beneath a sky filled with tiny printed stars. He laughed quietly. They gave me hair that looks way too good. They said that's because you're the kind of grown-up who listens, Camilla said. He looked down at the drawing again. In the corner, in Nora's handwriting, was a line. Thank you for seeing us. Adrian's voice caught. Tell them I see them always. That evening, back at Vale HQ, he gathered his core engineering team in the main conference room. Starting tomorrow, he said, we're diverting part of the R&D budget to a new initiative. Vale Bridge AI. Real-time systems for identifying tenant fraud, domestic threats, and child distress patterns through non-invasive data. His team exchanged surprised glances. Think of it, Adrian continued, tech that doesn't just learn from us, it protects us. One of his engineers smiled. That's not edge intelligence, that's empathy. Exactly, Adrian said. Later that night, he stood at his office window, the city alive below. He turned the Quantin robot keychain in his fingers. The tiny wheel still spun perfectly. For the first time, it didn't sound like something broken. It sounded like something running smooth, on course. He whispered to the empty room, "They're going to be all right." And maybe, he thought, so was he. 2 weeks later, the city wore winter like an afterthought. Soft snow on brownstone steps, faint light glowing behind cafe windows. For the first time in months, Adrian had nowhere urgent to be. No courtrooms, no interviews, just one promise left to keep. He parked his bike outside the Hattie Franklin Institute, the air crisp and clean. Inside, laughter carried through marble halls and echoing exhibits. He spotted them instantly. Nora, Leo, Camila, and Renee, by the giant heart installation glowing red in the darkened wing. Nora saw him first. "Adrian!" she shouted, running forward before catching herself, embarrassed. "I mean, Mr. Vale." He chuckled. "Pretty sure you've earned first names by now." Leo barreled into him next, waving the E-10 robot proudly. "Look, he rolls faster now." Adrian crouched to inspect it. "You upgraded the motor?" Leo grinned. "Aunt Camilla helped, and Mom says it's teamwork." "Your mom's right," Adrian said softly. Renee approached last, her gait slower but steadier, her skin clearer than the last time he'd seen her. "I'm still in outpatient care," she said, almost apologetic. "But I'm here. That counts." "It counts more than you think," Adrian replied. They walked together through the exhibits, the electricity hall, the planetarium, the robotics lab. Leo pressed every button. Nora asked every question, and Renee kept shaking her head, half in disbelief. "I used to bring them here when things were good," she murmured. "I'd forgotten what their laughter sounded like inside these walls." "Then today's your reminder," Adrian said. At the robotics exhibit, Leo tugged Adrian's sleeve. "Can we build one?" "Always," Adrian said, guiding him to a work table. Together they assembled a small plastic rover, fitting sensors and wheels. Leo added his tin robot to the top, balancing it like a captain riding his ship. Renee watched them, tears glinting under the soft fluorescent light. "You know," she said quietly, "when I first saw you in that hospital room, I thought you were just another person who'd pity us and move on." Adrian looked up, gentle. "And now?" "Now, I think you showed up because someone once showed up for you," she said. He smiled faintly. "You're not wrong." They all stopped at the museum's final exhibit, a room where stars were projected on the domed ceiling. The children lay on the floor, gazing upward as constellations shimmered above. Nora whispered, "They look real." "They are," Adrian said. "They're just far away." Leo turned the robot's wheel slowly. "Like when we couldn't see you," he said. "You were still there." Adrian swallowed hard. "Always," he said. When it was time to leave, they stepped onto the museum's stone steps. The sky outside was turning gold with evening. Cars moved slow under the pale light, and somewhere down Market Street, a busker played soft guitar. Renee turned to him, voice low but steady. "You know, we weren't rescued. Not really." Adrian tilted his head. "No?" She shook her head. "We were believed. That's rarer." He felt something tighten behind his ribs, something like relief, something like peace. "Then let's keep believing," he said. Nora reached up and pressed the A-10 robot keychain into his palm. "He's yours now," she said. "We don't need him to feel brave anymore." Adrian looked down at it, one small symbol of every moment that had changed his life. "You sure?" She nodded. "You fixed him. And us." He smiled, closing his fingers around it. "Then I'll keep him safe." As the sun dipped low, casting long amber light across the museum steps, Adrian watched them go, Renee and Camilla walking side by side, Nora skipping ahead, Leo rolling his toy robot along the pavement. He stood there a long moment, listening to their laughter fade into the hum of the city. When he finally turned toward his bike, he glanced once more at the little keychain in his hand. The tiny wheel caught the light and spun, steady, smooth, whole. For a man who'd spent years building intelligence, Adrian realized he'd finally learned meaning. He whispered into the cool air, "We weren't built to walk by, we were built to stop." Then he put on his hood, smiled faintly, and pedaled into the dusk, his heart lighter, his purpose clear, and the sound of a small turning wheel keeping rhythm with every mile ahead.